seems like I've done a lot of color book reviews recently, and that has included these color index books, which I said I did not like and did not think were very useful for traditional painters. Also, I reviewed the Color Scheme Bible, which is for interior design, but I said I did like because I like its big swatches and sort of its ability to randomly inspire you if you just open to any page and pick a color scheme and try to then emulate it, because it doesn't give you the values. If I had to choose a color book that was my favorite color book of all time, I would have to choose these, well, I guess it's two books, but they're similar. So if you just get one or the other, it doesn't matter, because one of them is an older version of the book by the same woman. Her name is Nita Leland, and she's a wonderful mixed media artist. And she has written these two books. They're called Exploring Color and Confident Color. And I have to say that she really turned my world upside down. She starts out in both of these books talking to you a little bit about color theory, but she doesn't do too much of it. She immediately starts to talk about what happens with color, and she gives you the different properties of color, and then starts to talk about the different color schemes. She talks about having limited color schemes and how they give you a great mood for something. So if you use every color in the world, you may not be able to get any mood at all in your painting, and some of the colors might even look horribly jarring next to each other. But if you do have a limited color scheme, it becomes intuitive, actually, and you might also recognize that some of it was always there in your mind and you just didn't know why it worked. She has this great way of laying out the different color schemes, like monochromatic, analogous, complementary, the double complementary, tetradic, the analogous complementary, split complementary, tetradic, and the triadic. And then she tells you, of course, that scientifically these would look beautiful, but also she helps you understand that if you ever liked a painting or like particular kinds of colors, that it's probably because they fall into this. So it basically tells you that it's intuition and there's actually a science behind it. So I actually really love this book, and it has a huge number of examples, and so you can just flip through it at any given point and find a color scheme that you might like, and then say, what colors do I have that'll give me that? She also shows you how you can find color schemes that are not commonly used. So for example, you've got a modern triad that we use, and then you also have maybe an old master's palette, which is just burnt sienna, yellow ochre, and Payne's gray, and it'll give you a very limited color scheme and a completely different look. Automatically, without thinking about it, anything you paint with these three colors is going to look like it's coming from several centuries ago where people didn't have as many pigments, and so it's very exciting. So for example, here's the opaque earth triad, and you can see you've replaced a primary yellow and a primary red with a much more subdued red and yellow, and you end up with this great subdued color scheme that looks very earthy and old-fashioned, like a sepia tinted photograph, and the same thing for the old master's triad. So she also goes into the 7 contrasts of color, which again is not just the actual color schemes, but also hue, value, intensity, temperature, complements, quantity, and perceptual color. And each time she explains it, she has examples. For example, when she gets to the temperature page, you see that she has, this wonderful painting here that is showing you an orange-red mountain against this blue sort of jewel tone sky. And not only is it color contrast and a complementary color scheme, but it's also color temperature that's working here. And so she talks about all of this, and you see examples for it, and you see why it works. I would have to say that if I have certain books that fall into that have to have this book for drafting or have to have this book for how I learned how to painting technique, these 2 books by her, I would say I would have to have had if I was trying to really understand where color comes from and how it works, and it's been completely invaluable to me. So I would highly recommend these 2 books. If you're going to get any books on color at all, I think it'll open up different worlds for people who are confused by color. So this is not just for people who are starting out, but also for advanced painters. I think that advanced painters would find that it backs up a lot of the stuff they do intuitively, and for beginning painters, I think it will break it down for you and tell you the science behind it, and then let it go back into being an art. If you're the kind of person that wants to learn about limited color palettes and how your intuition is backed by a certain kind of science and how you can find these patterns, then get these 2 books.